A very strange rock shaped like a boat has been discovered in an Icelandic cave. According to the experts, the Vikings probably used this bizarre rock to ward off a potential apocalypse 1,100 years ago. This mysterious rock-shaped structure was found in a cave located near a volcano that just so happened to have erupted at around the same time, 1,100 years ago when the Vikings had just colonized Iceland. The boat made from stone was also discovered filled with mysterious trade goods from the Middle East. And here is where things get very interesting. This was at a time when Christianity had already become the dominant religion in Iceland, brought over by the Vikings. The Vikings associated this particular cave with the end of times. Historical records show the place was feared as the exact location where Satan would emerge on Judgment Day. And yet Viking tradition was still going strong as well. The eruption of the nearby volcano probably would have made the Vikings living near it scared that Judgment Day was coming. Researchers found that as the lava from the eruption began to cool, the Vikings entered the cave and constructed the boat-shaped structure. Once complete, they would have burned animal bones in sacrifice, including those from sheep, goat, cattle, and pigs. The Vikings may have done this to try to ward off another eruption. Over time, they filled the boat and the cave with goods to appease the gods and stop the end of the world. Researchers found rare minerals and trade goods that came from many different parts of the world, indicating that there were probably more trade routes that we just don't know about. When the world didn't end, the Vikings likely continued to use the stone boat as a place for rituals. But within about a generation, when Christianity claimed pretty much everyone, the cave and its stone rock were both abandoned. The 19th century saw a scramble amongst European explorers to discover a polar sea route linking the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, better known as the Northwest Passage. One of these expeditions, led by Sir John Franklin, set sail in 1845 with 129 crew members. They felt extremely prepared and confident, with excellent steam engine ships and all kinds of equipment. Shockingly, none of them survived. After spending a year stuck in the ice, the crew deserted their two vessels in hopes of making it back to civilization on foot. Meanwhile, the rest of the world waited to learn of their fate, unaware of just how bad things had gotten. Answers came through the discovery of clues such as human remains, written notes, personal belongings, and eyewitness accounts. The evidence showed that the men died in different places and at different times throughout their quest for survival. During the 1980s, archaeologist Owen Beatty excavated 3 of the explorers' remains on Beechey Island in Nunavut, Canada. The remains belonged to sailors John Hartnell, John Torrington, and William Brain, who died relatively early during the trek. After spending over a century buried in the permafrost, the bodies were found remarkably intact. The men died with high levels of lead in their blood, possibly from tinned food or their ship's water system. But a 2016 study determined that they actually died from a lung disease, such as pneumonia or tuberculosis. Their poor health and lack of food exacerbated the situation. Beechey Island contains a 4th grave belonging to Thomas Morgan, an investigator who died of scurvy in 1854 while searching for the lost Franklin expedition. The lost ships weren't discovered until 2014 and 2016, but they were found in practically pristine condition under the icy water. In the 1960s, the Soviet Union was busy building bunkers all across Poland. At the time, these bunkers were highly classified. They did not appear on any maps and were concealed from the public. They were so hidden that they couldn't be spotted from the air, since during that time, spies were everywhere. All these years later, the truth about the mysterious Soviet bunkers is being uncovered. Researchers are finally revealing some of the secret military strategies implemented by the Soviets during the Cold War. Soviet documents refer to these places as communication centers, but then they stopped talking about them altogether. Why? Because these bunkers were actually stocked with nuclear weapons. The Soviet Union always denied having nuclear weapons in Poland, but declassified satellite images and building scans say otherwise. Researchers have now begun entering these old sites, and the evidence from inside shows that they were definitely used to store nukes. Archaeologists from the Institute of History and International Relations in Poland were able to finally explore some of the nuclear warhead storage facilities. Life Science reports that they are working on piecing together the role the secret sites played on the global chessboard. The abandoned facilities were similar to the bunkers in Germany, Czechoslovakia, Bulgaria, and Hungary that the Soviets also used to house nukes. There were basically tactical nuclear warheads all over Europe, with enough firepower to wipe the continent off the map. These warheads varied from being as small as 0.5 kilotons to as big as 500 kilotons. Of course, the amount of firepower possessed by the Russians has not diminished, but the facilities in most of Europe have been abandoned, and it's believed that the nuclear warheads are now all on Russian soil. Northwestern China's Tarim Basin is known for both its rich history and amazing diversity. But perhaps one of the things that stands out the most are the red-haired Chinese mummies that have been found here, perfectly preserved. The mummies were first discovered in the 1930s by Swedish archaeologists, and then again in 2000, the Xinjiang Archaeological Institute discovered the oldest and best preserved to date. One of the most famous mummies is the Beauty of Lao Lan. She was found in 1980, buried 3 feet beneath the ground. The salt in the soil helped keep her extremely well preserved, and she was wrapped in a woolen cloth with many funerary gifts. Bordering several countries and located along the historic Silk Road trade route, people have passed through the region for thousands of years. But the roots of the Tarim Basin's residents have long been a mystery. Where did they come from? Scientists are finally close to getting answers, thanks to a recent DNA analysis of the mummified remains that date back nearly 4,000 years. The 20 mummies that were tested were found at the edge of the basin at the Qiaohe Tomb Complex and were found among the earliest layer of burials. The DNA shows that the people descended from South Siberia and Western Eurasia. The DNA also showed that they had genetic mutations that are either rare or not known to happen among modern people. The researchers concluded that these red-haired Chinese mummies may have had close relations with Western Europe via their maternal ancestry. They also believe that the people buried at the site descended from Siberian and Mongolian populations that intermingled thousands of years earlier. Besides the mysterious mummies, archaeologists found many artifacts of human figurines, boat coffins, leather hides, and perhaps most memorable, phallus and vulva-shaped carvings. The site of the Tarim Basin spans a millennium, making it an ideal place to search for answers to our human past and the mystery of the ancient people who lived here.